In 1993, a quiet summer deep in the Siberian taiga, 7 young friends set out from the last outpost, eager to trek into the Khamar Daban range, a wild land where the wind howls through deep ravines and snow lingers even in August. They carried maps, food, compasses, and the belief that nature welcomes the brave. 3 days later, a small storm swept the mountains. After that, no one heard from them again. A week later, only one girl returned, her eyes vacant, her whole body trembling, unable to speak. When rescuers reached the site, they found the bodies of the other 6 scattered across the slopes, curled into fetal positions, mouths agape, strange fluids and blood smeared around their noses and chins. What could drive a team of healthy, experienced mountaineers to unravel in terror, dying in agony, as though hunted by something no one could see? August 1993. The Khamar Daban Mountains lay like a sleeping beast, wrapped in dense forest, mist, and the howl of wind threading through eternal stone cracks. In the gentle summer light, 7 young people left the village of Slujanka, the gateway into the wilderness of this range. Leading them was Lyudmila Korovina, a veteran mountaineering guide, trained by Soviet military sports organizations. It was said she could tell wind direction from the scent of fallen leaves and read animal tracks to the hour they were made. The other 6 were her students, teammates, and friends, young, strong, and brimming with confidence. There was Alexander, 23, tall and always carrying his guitar; Tatiana, 24, a competitor in 3 semi-pro climbing events; Victoria, the youngest, but famously tough; and Valentine, who always brought a small diary to record every step of the way. They were well prepared: detailed maps, radio equipment, tents, 10 days' worth of dry food, a full medical kit. No reason to worry. The first photos from their camera, still preserved today, show smiles, music, and peace signs against a backdrop of lush green peaks. The first day passed in calm. They crossed birch forests and camped by an icy stream. Night fell quickly, but the skies were clear. The stars reflected in puddles like thousands of watching eyes. Nothing strange. On day 2, they began their ascent up the slopes of Khamar Daban. From there, the weather shifted. Ash-colored clouds rolled in despite forecasts promising Sunday. The wind strengthened, and mist began to spill down from the peaks. Still, the group pressed on. They'd faced worse, they thought. But there was something none of them noticed. The forest birds had gone silent. No chirping, no insect hum, no crunch of breaking twigs. Only the wind, steady like something breathing in the trees. Valentine, the sole survivor, later said that night he heard whispering while lying in his tent. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then it called his name. A slow, drawn-out voice, like it came from inside his own head. He sat up, scanning the camp. Everyone was asleep, except Lyudmila. Her eyes were open. She wasn't sleeping. She stared through the fog, unblinking. The next morning, one member began to retch uncontrollably. Another's nose began to bleed, their legs buckling under them. And from that moment, the group began to fall apart one by one, as if taken apart by invisible hands. The third morning in the Khamar Daban Mountains began under heavy mist and a fine drizzle. No sunlight pierced the dense pine canopy, and the wind now carried a faint, metallic growl like steel scraping against stone. The young group, once full of chatter, now showed signs of fatigue, red eyes, and sudden bouts of vomiting without clear cause. Around midday, at nearly 2,000 meters elevation, Alexander Krivonos, the tallest, strongest member, collapsed. His head struck a rock, and he began to convulse violently. Foam, streaked with blood, spilled from his mouth. His whole body arched as if pulled taut by invisible wires. His eyes rolled back, pupils blown wide, unresponsive to light. The first scream came from Victoria Sharp, panicked, and from there, hell broke loose in the quiet mountains. Tatiana suddenly clutched her abdomen, groaning, before she too collapsed, shaking uncontrollably. Blood began to seep from her nose, ears, and even the corners of her eyes. Ludmila, the guide, tried to calm them, urging everyone to hold steady. But soon, she herself was retching a thick, yellowish fluid that stank of sulfur. Valentin, the sole survivor, later said he had never heard such sounds from human throats. Not fear, not pain, but absolute despair, like people being burned alive from the inside. No one had attacked them. No wild animals. No visible wounds. Yet one by one, they fell. Mouths working wordlessly, eyes wide, hands clawing at their own chests as if to rip their hearts free. One person tore at the skin on their own face, shrieking, "It's inside my ears!" Panic ripped through what remained of the group. 3 fled the camp, running downhill in the rain without taking water, food, or shelter, just running, as though something unseen was right behind them. Valentin tried to hold Victoria, the friend he trusted most, but she recoiled, trembling, as if she didn't recognize him. Her eyes were unfocused. Her lips repeated only one line: "We're not here anymore. We're not here anymore." In the end, only Valentin and Victoria were still standing, or at least not yet in convulsions. But no one could hear each other's voice anymore. The air felt crushed, compressed. The wind had stopped. And all that remained was a deadly stillness, broken only by the sight of twisted bodies, eyes staring, mouths frozen open. They decided to leave the camp at dawn the next day, carrying with them a horror they couldn't name, and the fight to survive would drag on for days through untracked wilderness no one else would see. After a night thick with screams, convulsions, blood, and the stench of death, only Valentin and Victoria were still on their feet. Neither spoke much. Eyes swollen, throats raw, limbs shaking from cold and hunger, they buried the others in snow, or at least covered them with branches and frozen stones. There was nothing else to do. They had no way to call for help. Their compass had stopped working. The storm the day before had erased all traces of the trail. They began descending, guided only by instinct. No map, no guide, only each other, and the crushing, unnatural silence. Victoria was no longer herself. She walked in a daze, skin pale and lips blue from cold and dehydration. Now and then, she would stop, tilt her head, as if listening to something above the trees. When Valentin asked, she only shook her head. "Don't you hear it? It's still there." One morning, after Valentin awoke from a shallow sleep in the forest, Victoria was gone. No footprints, no screams, no blood, only her scarf, snagged gently on a branch, as though someone had quietly removed it and left it there. Valentin did not run. He did not call out. Later, in his notebook, he wrote, "I knew. If I called her name, it would answer." From then on, he walked alone. 3 days. No food, no clean water, only forest, rock, and mist. Hallucinations crept in shapes, watching from far behind the trees. Once, he saw Alexander dead for days, standing in the woods, back turned, softly singing the song he used to play on his guitar. When Valentin blinked, the figure was gone, but the singing still drifted through the trees. On the 4th day, he found a stream, the first living thing he'd seen in days. But when he bent to drink, his reflection in the water smiled. His real face did not, but the reflection's mouth stretched in a slow, unnatural grin. He fell backward, unconscious for the night. Days later, a rescue team searching for an entirely different missing group found him skeletal, unresponsive to light or sound. Weeks passed in the hospital before he could speak again. Valentin was the only one who came back. When the rescue team returned to the Khamar Daban range with Valentin to identify the scene, snow had already begun to cover what remained after the storm. It took them nearly 2 days to locate the site where Ludmila's group had set up their last camp. 6 bodies lay scattered within a radius of more than 200 meters. Some were crudely covered with branches, others lay bare on the damp gravel ground in unnatural positions, curled up, bent over, faces buried in mud, limbs twisted as if in the throes of extreme agony. When the bodies were brought back, the forensic doctors immediately sensed something was wrong. None of the victims had visible external injuries, no stab wounds, no gunshot wounds, no signs of struggle or external attack. However, blood had flowed from their noses, ears, and mouths, and there were signs of internal bleeding. All 6 showed signs of acute shock. Their internal organs were swollen, their stomachs contained a strange grayish-green liquid, and their lungs were filled with thick, congealed mucus. One person's heart muscle was torn, with no apparent mechanical cause. One had broken ribs, but no evidence of impact. One was missing their tongue entirely. No one understood what was happening. All toxicology tests came back negative for pesticides, natural toxins, common poisonous gases, or radiation. The first examining doctor even had to write in the report, their bodies appeared to have suffered extreme nervous shock, combined with symptoms of the internal organs being cooked, but without exposure to high temperatures. Medical experts from Moscow were called in. The initial hypothesis suggested possible food poisoning, but no toxic mushrooms were found. Others speculated about indirect lightning strikes, but there were no electrical burns or charring. In the final report released, the investigative agency included one vague line: cause of death undetermined, possibly an unknown biochemical reaction. When asked, a neurologist responded bluntly, "If what the sole surviving witness described is true, then this was not merely a medical incident. This was a psychobiological event, perhaps even a space-time phenomenon beyond the scope of current medical research." The biggest question remains unanswered. What caused 6 healthy people to convulse, vomit blood, and die in agony, with no trace of poison, bacteria, or obvious mechanical injury? Valentin was shielded from the media, and after being discharged from the hospital, he withdrew completely from society. He has never given a public interview. 6 young people died in strange agony. One survivor returned, so traumatized that he lost the ability to speak for weeks. No poison, no killer, no wild animal, no radiation. Nothing that science could prove. The 1993 incident in the Khamar Daban range thus became one of the deadliest unsolved mysteries, even when compared to the more famous Dyatlov Pass tragedy. So, what happened to them? Hypothesis 1. Experimental, biological, or chemical weapon in the wrong place. At the time, Russia was in a period of transition after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There were many unofficial reports of biological weapons and old nerve agents leaking or being tested out of control. Some analysts believe the group of hikers may have accidentally encountered a cloud of nerve gas in vapor form, causing them to lose control of their central nervous systems, convulse, vomit blood, panic, and die within minutes. But the problem is, why was only one group affected? And if it was a toxic gas, why was no residue found in tissue samples or soil? Hypothesis 2. Ultra-rare natural phenomenon. The Siberian dead wind. Some geologists suggest that the Khamar Daban area could naturally release hydrogen sulfide or dense CO2 gas, especially when pressure, humidity, and geological layers shift. Such phenomena have been recorded at volcanic lakes in Cameroon, where entire villages died in their sleep as CO2 silently rolled out overnight, colorless, odorless. However, Colorado too causes drowsiness and suffocation, not the pain, convulsions, and sheer terror seen in the Khamar Daban Incident. Hypothesis 3. Mass psychological disorder. Mass hysteria. A psychological theory suggests that under extreme conditions, cold, low oxygen, prolonged stress, people can suffer from collective cognitive disturbances. A single panicked member can spread fear to the entire group, leading to self-hypnosis, nervous system dysfunction, or even death from acute cardiovascular collapse. However, science has never recorded a case in which 6 people actually died in such a short time, purely due to mass hysteria. Hypothesis 4. Invisible entity, or a temporary space-time portal. Some paranormal researchers believe the Khamar Daban Mountains lie on an energy fault line where time and space can briefly distort. They cite Valentine's account that Victoria heard a voice from the trees, that the wind suddenly stopped, and that the water's reflection smiled back when he was not smiling. Some supernatural investigation groups even believe Khamar Daban may be a kind of gate station, where an ancient entity dwelling inside the mountain awakens when humans stray into its domain. And finally, silence. No similar incidents have occurred since. No more deaths under such conditions. Yet every year, dozens of hiking groups passing through still leave bread, cigarettes, or talismans by the stream before venturing deeper into the mountains. They don't call it superstition. They call it respecting the boundaries of what cannot yet be understood. If you were the 8th member of that hiking group, watching your friends collapse for no reason, mouths full of blood, eyes wide and staring into nothing, would you run? Or would you stay to find out what was happening? Leave your comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue exploring the world's unsolved mysteries together.